All right, let's take a look at solving rational equations. So we have 4 steps to solve. First thing you need to do is find the LCD, which stands for the least common denominator. Then you're going to multiply both sides of your equation by that LCD. Third, you want to solve for x. And fourth, you need to check for extraneous solutions. So these are values of x that would give you 0 in the denominator of the original problem. So that's saying if you plug those into your original problem and you got something like 3 over 0, that would be considered extraneous because you have 0 in a denominator, which means it's undefined. All right, we're going to do 2 examples. First, we have something like this. If you notice that plus 1 at the end is not written as a fraction, so I'm going to fix that by just writing it over 1. So anytime something's not written as a fraction, you can just put it over 1. To find the least common denominator, I need to look at the denominator of all 3 of these fractions. First, I look at that first one. I have an x there. So that means I need to have an x in my LCD. If we look at the next fraction, we have 5x. We actually already have an x in our LCD, but we don't have a 5 yet, so we're going to include a 5. And for our last fraction, we just have a 1. We don't need to include a 1 in the least common denominator, so that means our LCD is just going to be 5x. So now that I've found my LCD, I'm going to multiply each term by 5x in the numerator. So I have 1 times 5x, and it's still just over x. So we're only multiplying in the numerator. Denominators are staying the same right now. That equals 6 times 5x, and that is over 5x, plus 1 times 5x over 1. All right, once you multiply, you're going to start to look and see, can anything cancel? So my first fraction, I can cancel those x's. So I'm left with 1 times 5, or just 5. And that equals, then over here for our next fraction, we can cancel the 5x's, and we're just left with 6. Plus, and then last fraction, there's nothing that cancels there, so we're just going to be left with 5x. So now that I have everything cleared out, there are no more denominators, we cleared those out, we can start combining like terms. So I'm going to subtract 6 from each side of the equation. So I'm going to get -1 equals 5x. So I have -1 equals 5x. Divide by 5 on each side, and I'm going to get -1/5 equals x. So that is my solution. Then I need to check to see, do I have any extraneous solutions? So what I have to do for that is I'm going to take that -1/5, plug that in for every time I see an x in my original problem. So I would have 1 over -1/5 equals 6 over 5 times -1/5 plus 1. And if we look, I have -1/5 in my first denominator. My second fraction, I would end up getting a -1 if I do 5 times -1/5, which means I don't have 0 in any of my denominators. So -1/5 is the answer. It's not extraneous. All right, we'll do one more example. So next example, we have 3x minus 4 over x plus 3 over 2x equals 1/2. So start by finding that LCD. My first fraction has an x, so I need an x in my LCD. My second fraction has 2x in the denominator. We don't need to include another x, but we do need to include a 2. And my last fraction has a 2 in the denominator. And I've actually already included a 2 in my LCD, so I don't need to add another one in there. So I'm going to take that 3x minus 4, put it in parentheses, and that whole thing is being multiplied by the LCD of 2x. And that's still going to be over x. Then we're going to add 3 times 2x over 2x, and that equals 1 times 2x over 2. All right, so my first fraction, I can cancel an x and an x. So I'm left with 3x minus 4 times 2. My second fraction, I can cancel 2 x's, so I'm left with just plus 3 equals, and then my last fraction, I can cancel the 2's. So I'm just left with a single x over there. Before I can start combining like terms though, I need to take that 2 and distribute it to the 3x and to the negative 4. So 2 times 3x is going to give me 6x, and 2 times negative 4 is going to give me negative 8, plus 3 equals x. Alright, so I have everything simplified, but I need to start combining like terms. So I'm going to start by just combining that negative 8 and that 3, just add those together. So I'm going to get 6x minus 5 equals x. And now that I combined those two, I'm going to move that 6x over to get it with the other x. So subtract 6x on each side, and I'm left with negative 5 equals, over on the right side here, I have 1x minus 6x, which is a negative 5x. And now I just need to solve for x, so I need to divide by that negative 5, which will give me 1 equals x. So this says that 1 should be my answer. Let's double check to make sure that is not going to be extraneous. So if I plug 1 into my original equation, I have 3 times 1 minus 4 over 1 plus 3 over 2 times 1 equals 1/2. Let's look at all those denominators. My first denominator is just 1, that's fine. My second denominator, 2 times 1 is just 2, that's fine. My third denominator is 2, and that's also fine. I don't have zeros in any of the denominators, which means that 1 is not an extraneous solution. So that would be our answer.